Let's go Mets. Let's go Mets. Let's go Mets. Yeah.
You gotta believe and invest with your heart. Orange and blue till Mets do us part. Spring training, oh yes, it's the start. City field gritty till Mets do us part. Hit home runs and knock it out the park. Big Apple till Mets do us part. You gotta believe and invest with your heart. Listen to the show till Mets do us part. John from Brooklyn, Ibby reps NJ. We're the other team, I don't care what your friends say. Mets fans, we focus like a sensei. Listen to the podcast Monday, Wednesday. Made a couple bad plays, but we still won. Character, yup, we're gonna build some. Are you gonna check the pod? Is real fun. Just like Mookie, I will, son. So invest with your heart. Orange and blue till Mets do us part. Spring training, oh yes, it's the start. City field gritty till Mets do us part. Hit home runs and knock it out the park. Big Apple till Mets do us part. You gotta believe and invest with your heart. Listen to the show.
Available now on all streaming platforms. If you love the New York Mets, check out Til Mets Do Us Part. Enough rapping. Let's get to yapping.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Til Mets Do Us Part. We are live on YouTube, live on Twitter, like we are each and every single Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time or thereabouts. John Saponaro coming to you live from Burbank, California, and that means my co-host Matt Ibanez holding things down back in New Jersey. Ibby, lot to get to. A little bit of a shorter show today. We'll get into that coming up in a second. We don't like to go up against Mets baseball because why would we? Everybody who watches this show, listens to this show live, including the two of us, want to watch the Mets game. So before we talk about all that stuff, though, how you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty well, John. Thank you for asking, as always. Our Mets are rolling. And look, there's some things that were a little concerning over the past week that we'll hit on. But as I just said to you in the resolve of this team to bounce back from certain things, to wash things, if you will, is great to see, and it's the makings of a strong baseball team in general. But if there is one thing I will say before we get rolling, because we know that the red light's on, it's Wednesday, it's 5:30, we got a show to do. There is one thing I must say, and it's, it has to do with the fact that yesterday, I already texted this to you, but I have to say it now so everyone else can know as well. We have 58 here, and the room's going to be climbing throughout. But yesterday marked something. And for those that have been here since day one, maybe they know, maybe they don't. Those of you that joined us a little bit later during this run, yesterday marked the 4-year anniversary of episode 1 for Til Mets Do Us Part. So those of you that have been with us since day one, we appreciate you wholeheartedly. 4 years, episode 1. Today marks episode 193. So shout out to all of you that have been with us since day one. And let's have ourselves a show. Let's always, have some fun. Let's talk some Mets baseball.
Absolutely. And a couple of things I want to address right off the bat. First of all, thank you for tracking that. I knew the day was soon. I knew it was coming up, but I wasn't sure exactly what
Facebook memories was. Facebook memories.
See, that's my problem. I don't have Facebook. So I have to remember everything or put it into like my calendar or whatever the case may be. Otherwise, and I was like, man, I know it's soon, but I don't know when it is. So, congratulations to you. It has been, like
surviving
from me. I mean, it's been amazing, man. No, for real. Like, I honestly, like, I can't think of a better way to, kind of be a part of this new Mets era that is, Steve Cohen and more recently David Stearns, than to be able to do this show and to do it with you every week like clockwork. Like you always say, we really don't take any time off. Just a couple weeks when the Mets season is over. Last year when the Mets make a deep run like they did, and then the World Series ends as quickly as it did, I think we planned on taking 2 or 3 weeks off, and we wound up taking 1 week off. So we are here doing what we do. And happy anniversary to you from me and a lot of people kind of echoing that. Carlos Ortiz saying happy anniversary. We've got Armand saying congrats, John and Ibby. Cindy, Carlos Ramos, we have Zero Cool, Stanley Babbage, We've got Juan. Congrats on the 4-year anniversary. You guys have an awesome podcast. Thank you. Is Juan new?
You, Juan.
Is that a new commenter? Or
seems like a new commenter or one that has been here for a while. Either way, appreciate you, Juan. And if we're off on that, you're here more often. I'm sorry, but either way, thank you so much for the comment. It means a lot.
Absolutely. And let us know if you are here for the first time, Juan. We like to shout out folks who are commenting live, at least for the first time. And, one of the drawbacks of doing the show for as long as we have, and, the growth that we've seen and we've experienced over the last, 4 years, is that sometimes it is difficult to remember. It used to be very easy to remember if somebody was new.
Right. Right.
But now, when you have some, infrequent commenters and infrequent live viewers to go along with the folks who are here each and every single week, sometimes it's just hard to remember. So, Juan, if you're still here, let us know if you are new to the show. If you are, welcome. If you are not, welcome back. That said, Ibby, we also have Brad here. We've got D in the house. We have Charlie is here as well. In addition to the folks I've already mentioned, of course, that gave us some shout outs and some congratulations. Clink is here. Who else do our little bit of roll call? We have Danger Zone is here as well. Danger Zone hasn't been here in a minute, so welcome back. Odd Villain saying the party can start now that I am here. That
Odds
is
in the building.
That is some Odd Villain energy. Like we alluded to at the top, the show will be a little shorter today. I know you're used to us going 2 hours, but there is really no point in us going up against the Mets game. So Mets game scheduled to start at 7:10 out on the East Coast. So figure we'll go till about 7:05, allow people to kind of, power down a little bit, get ready for the Mets game. We also acknowledge that there are, probably some folks, Ibby, who may not be here because they may be at the Mets game, who we're used to seeing. I think Jeff Cohen was one of the folks who commented on Twitter, who's usually here pretty much like clockwork every week, saying he's at the Mets game. So if you're at the Mets game, of course, enjoy it. All of that amazing stuff. Ibby, the last thing I want to get off my chest is a little controversial, but I think we have to get it out of the way right away. I don't see a world in which 100 average men can beat one silverback gorilla.
I had no idea what was going on. I had no idea what was going on. I just saw a bunch of people talking about gorillas, and I'm just like, what the hell is going on? So I typed it into Twitter, and I was like, well, what's this? What are we talking about here? And then I see everyone talking about it, and then my one friend's texting me about it. I'm like, are we serious here? Like, one gorilla would destroy one gorilla would destroy everything. And it's like, do we realize how large and how strong a gorilla? I don't care how many men there are. They're all going down. It's just gonna be like dominoes. Like one swing, body's gonna go flying, gonna knock down 10. Next one, 10 more. Like, there's no shot. Team gorilla.
There's absolutely no shot. People were saying things like, and we'll get into the serious Mets conversation. I was just being a jerk to start this off. Yeah, I mean, D saying it would be a wave of destruction. It reminds me of like how in The Dark Knight Rises, when at the very beginning, when they're like, if I take off that mask, will you die? And he's like, it will be very painful for you. Come on, man. Are you kidding me? Like, absolutely not. There is no shot in the world that is possible. Gorillas are enormous. I know silverback gorillas are only like, I think their average height, I looked it up before, is like between 4'11" if they're standing up and 5'11". Ibby, you get a 5'11", 400-pound male silverback gorilla.
Like a spinning back fist from a gorilla, you're dead. I don't care what anyone says.
It's knocking your head smooth off your body. That's assuming that you don't get grabbed and it doesn't rip your arms off. That's just assuming that it's
that scene. I'm sorry, just remind me of that scene for any of the horror fans out there. As crazy as this sounds, my favorite Friday the 13th is when Jason takes Manhattan, because it's so hilarious. And he sees someone on a rooftop and he punches them, and literally their head flies off of their shoulders, off of the top of the building. That's exactly what would happen once you take one hit from a giant silverback gorilla. No shot.
I don't know. I don't want to spoil it because it's like a new enough movie. It's a good movie. It's worth watching. I thought this is what you were going to say when you mentioned horror. Have you seen Nope, the Jordan Peele movie?
No, I have not yet. No.
Okay. So you should watch Nope. It's on some streaming, probably Amazon or whatever. But there is a very prominent scene with a chimpanzee, and a chimpanzee is not nearly the size of a gorilla. I just needed to say that. So Danger Zone saying, why is it a silverback now? That ups the stakes. I was under the impression it was a silverback the whole time. So maybe it's not. Either way, the Danger Zone, it doesn't matter. It does not matter.
Just watch Planet of the Apes and look how those apes, work together and how strong they are. It's like, you have no shot.
No shot. Absolutely no shot. Like here, and the last thing I'll say about it is this: I went to Alaska a few years ago, and when I was there, I went to Denali National Park, and there are brown bear, grizzly bear in Denali. Mm-hmm. And one of the things they tell you when you're getting off the bus is like, hey, so the two most dangerous animals that you will encounter here are grizzly bear, obviously, and moose. And they're like, if you see a moose, you have to turn around and run as fast as you can and put as much distance and as much space in between yourself and the moose as possible, because the moose is going to be startled by you, and all they know is to just turn and run and charge, and it doesn't matter because they're used to being prey. So it's like, if you startle one, you're kind of screwed. And they're like, bear, on the other hand, they look at you. You don't see yourself as this, you know better, but they look at you as another bear. They look at you as a potential predator. So the best thing to do is to make yourself big and be angry and all this stuff, because there's no health insurance for animals in the wild, and they have to risk reward every encounter that they have where it might be their last. If they have a broken jaw, if they have a severely injured limb or whatever, like, they're going to die probably. So I always think about that in context like this when these stupid things come up, but it's just like, yeah, dude, but you're doing that as a way to try to stop the bear from engaging with you. Once you approach the bear, or in this case, the gorilla, and you swing on it, well, now that thing is in full fight mode, and it's going to destroy you. So
just an insane thought. This entire process, just as insane.
I just thought it was a really funny way to start the show. Yeah. Anyway, Odd Villain says a gorilla would smoke every single major league roster. Yeah, if you've got I don't know if you can get a gorilla to be your DH, you know what I mean? Odd Villain saying, changing the topic now to some real Met stuff. LFGM 21-9, son. I love it, Ibby. Look, Mets are riding high right now. They've got the best record in baseball, the aforementioned 21-9. They've got a great record at home. They only have one loss. They are, I think, one game under 500 on the road, which is fine for now. I mean, the old adage in baseball is, you win the majority of your games at home, you play 500 on the road, you're a great team. So I'm not worried about that. They do need to be a bit better, but whatever, you get there. You played some really cold, terrible games in Minnesota. You played a good team in Houston right off the rip when, you're not really exactly, firing on all cylinders as the Mets, a team that's doesn't have the pedigree of winning that Houston has, regardless of their diminished roster or whatever the case may be. But I think the biggest talking point of this week's show right now is the fact that the Mets got punched in a way that we are used to seeing the Mets get punched in the face. The Mets got punched by a silverback gorilla when they lost that game that they should have never lost. I texted Ibby and I was like, what happened? They were winning 7-1. And then I played baseball and I saw that the game was over and they lost. And he's like, I don't know, man. I was painting my deck. I was finishing up everything that I was talking about last week. And all of a sudden I came back in and they lost. So they had this implosion that us Mets fans are used to. But Ibby, what we're not exactly used to is they've scored like 230 runs since they lost that game. I mean, they have been on an absolute tear.
25 runs in the last 9 innings. 25 runs in the last 9 innings.
Listen, man, you respond because every team is going to have those games where things fall apart. And I think with Mets fans in the past, we're used to seeing that happen and then just being just like, man, is this the beginning of the end? This team responds, I mean, in the best way possible by just absolutely routing the Nationals. And then they got a game with a good team in Arizona, and they come out and, they put up a lot of runs early and everybody's hitting home runs. And, shout out Brandon Nimmo. We'll talk about him in a minute. Shout out Pete Alonso and Francisco Lindor. But Ibby, they respond in the way that you could only dream of your baseball team responding.
Yeah, it was, I was mentioning to you before in just talk about the resolve of this team and just seeing how you would respond. And a lot of people were saying that like the most important thing is to not dwell and focus on the loss that was. It's about how are they going to respond? Are they going to allow it to eat them alive and fall into a little bit of a downturn, of a downswing? Or are they going to come back out and do what they're supposed to do? And they came back out and they handled their business. Like I said, 25 runs. I said the last 9 innings. That was just obviously yesterday's game, but 25 runs at one point during yesterday's game. It was 25 runs over their last 9 innings. So it's great to see that this team doesn't allow something like that to allow them to fall into, like I just said, that to that downswing. Like they know how good they are. And I think it's becoming more and more clear that this team knows it's a player. I spoke about the last 2 weeks about the identity of this team and how they want to be a respected team, a top flight team, and a team that can go out there every single day and win a ball game. And you see something like that happen, and the Mets that we know from years past would allow something like that to turn into this huge issue, a problem, a point that we would look back on and say, things went bad once this happened. They couldn't get up. We've seen that the last couple of years where it's like they just couldn't get off the mat. They couldn't get off the mat. They couldn't get off the mat. This time they say, no. It happened. Let it go. We're on to the next game. Brandon Nimmo, you mentioned him before. The fact that he goes out there when everybody was questioning him no less than 24 hours prior, saying, I don't know about Brandon Nimmo. Is Brandon Nimmo washed? Is Brandon Nimmo this? Is Brandon Nimmo that? He's been in a slump since the second half of 24. What happened to Brandon Nimmo? And then he comes out there, batting sixth that game, correct? I think he was batting sixth, and dropped him from that 4 spot, goes out there, 3-run homer, grand slam, 2-run double, 9 RBIs, goes out there and handles his business. Now, look, he's been out the last 2 games. Because of flu-like symptoms, said to be available off the bench.
Stomach bug, I think, is going around. I know Griffin Canning had it. Jesse Winker had it.
So, yeah, obviously, it sucks to not see him being able to build off of that. But apparently he wasn't even feeling that great that game. So he went out there, and I joked with some friends saying how, he's got a little bit of a stomach ache because he was feasting on too much of the pitching from the Nats. But all in all, it's great to see. And I hope that once he does get back into the lineup, he can continue that type of groove, because we can see once he gets going, and you're seeing Vientos coming out of it more and more over his last, week or so, week plus, he's batting over 300, that being Vientos. You're seeing how once this lineup gets fully going, and we're still waiting for the power at least to show for Juan Soto, we're seeing that this team, once it's running on all cylinders, like, it's trouble. And when we say that, we said last week, we said the week prior, there's still another level to this team. I feel like we've gotten a preview of that level over these last, call it 9 to 12 innings, if you will, of what this team can be. And look, I know, and this is my last point here, I know the Nats are not a team that many are thinking about. But I said to a lot of people that I was talking to prior, the Diamondbacks are a damn good baseball team. The Diamondbacks are a top flight team out west. They're a team that they were fighting for a playoff spot last year. They're going to be a top flight team this year. They've been scoring runs nonstop. For the Mets to welcome them in to their home and handle them 8-3. Now we'll see what happens tonight with the pitching and everything, but they handled them 8-3. That's a big win. That's a big win. I'd love to see it.
Absolutely. I mean, there's no disputing that. When you look at, I know we've talked a lot the last 2 weeks about Nimmo being in the cleanup spot and Nimmo needing to be moved off of that spot. A lot of people in the comments, especially, have had really, really strong opinions on that. And you and I have not disagreed with them, but just tried to temper a bit of that, saying, one, it's still really early to get caught up on everyday lineups in and out, because the Mets have had a little bit of fluidity, with their lineup, just not in the top 3. The top 3 have been static, as they should be. And that's been a big part of us telling people, listen, you can't really mess with 1, 2, and 3 right now. And also, no one else is available to jump in and fulfill that cleanup spot on a night in and night out basis, because other guys are also struggling. But now what you're seeing is And look, I know we joked about it. We talked about, how crazy it would be if Jeff McNeil came back and hit in the 4 spot immediately, and he hasn't yet, although he has played center field in 2 games and has looked pretty good out there. But when you get a Jeff McNeil back, even if you disagree, like I do, like you do, like everybody in the chat is going to disagree with him hitting 4th, it does allow you, when he comes back, to say, wow, your lineup's longer. He's not an ideal 4 hitter, but if he's hitting and other guys aren't, you can shake things up a little bit. Then all of a sudden you're like, oh, we have Alvarez back. Same idea there. Yeah, had a bit of a down year last year, especially with the power. Do you really want to put him in the 4 spot, especially coming off of injury? No, but you could. And that allows you to kind of, again, not only lengthen the lineup, but think about what else and who else you can put in that spot. Then when you add that with Acuna hitting over, 350 or whatever he's done for the last 2 weeks, he's hit almost 400. You're not going to put him in the 4 spot, but all of a sudden that gives you the possibility. You have Vientos, who hit over, I think, 360 in the Nats series, and he's turning it on. Now he's a guy who you could legitimately plug into that 4 spot. You could put Winker there on a case-by-case basis. You could put Marte there on a case-by-case basis. All I'm trying to say as I deep dive into each one of these guys is that you finally have a situation where you can pick your poison and put somebody else in the 4 spot, not named Brandon Nimmo, on a consistent basis, and all of a sudden your lineup doesn't look short. When you had just Lindor, Soto, and Alonso really producing at the top in the first 3 spots, and then you had Beatty not hitting, Acuna not hitting, Vientos not hitting, Nimmo not hitting, Winker not hitting. You see where I'm going with this. The only person besides them that was hitting was Luis Torrens, who you're not going to put in the 4 spot regardless of what he's doing at that point. The 4th best hitter on your team was Brandon Nimmo. So if you want to stand there and just carry through with the same thought process, which is give your top 4 guys the most at bats, that's what the Mets were doing. Now, you could disagree. I can disagree. The chat certainly disagreed. Even, Carlos Ramos, who's been a big proponent of this, saying Nimmo bat 6 is the perfect recipe for success. I don't disagree with that. I think 6 is a good spot for Brandon Nimmo. I know some other people are going to disagree with that. My only point is the long-winded version I just gave you. The short portion of it is it's amazing what the lineup can actually look like, despite the fact that Acuna was producing before McNeil got here, slightly before, and despite the fact that Torrens was absolutely great. It's amazing what the lineup starts to look like when you get 2 pieces like Jeff McNeil, who I don't love, and Francisco Alvarez, who I do love, back. It lengthens everything out, and suddenly that thing that looked like a glaring problem is less of a glaring problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just love the fact that, the especially the back end of the lineup, like I'm talking like 7, 8, 9, we're getting good at bats on the back end. It's all about making sure we're turning the lineup over in spots where it needs to be turned over to get the likes of Lindor, Soto, and Alonso more opportunities to score runs. So when I'm seeing great at bats from the likes of a Jose Azocar, or I'm watching, the 300 average of Luis Angel Acuna, and he's getting on base and he's running around, he's stealing, he's getting himself in positions to score, which then sets the table for guys that are red hot, that being the Lindors, Soto to an extent, and of course, Alonso. So all in all, it's great to see the lineup start to show that length that we've been waiting for. And like I said, I still think that there is that next level where it can continue to be, even greater than what it's provided to this point, even over this last, handful of game stretch.
Let me ask you this question. I do have a lot of comments started. There's a lot of really good ones coming in, and over 150 people in here with us right now. We appreciate all you folks. Should mention, if you are new to the show, if you're hearing it, watching it, whatever the case may be for the first time, this is Til Mets Do Us Part. It is free and available on all the platforms that you download this kind of content onto your brain, most notably here on YouTube, where the live stream exists. But if you missed the live stream, you can go back and watch anything you missed. And we also drop as an audio podcast later on tonight on Spotify, Apple, Amazon Music, and much, much more. And like I said, free and available wherever it is you get your podcast, your live streams, all of that stuff. Ibby, this is a good one from Carson. I honestly did not expect this from Carson. Shout out Mets Weekly. Carson says, my problem with the lineups is the fact that there's a brand new one every day. No lineup with this amount of depth should be constructed with drawing straws. Consistent order, consistent production. The reason why that surprises me from Carson is because Carson's a pretty new school guy in a lot of ways, and that feels like a bit of an old school ideology, although I don't necessarily disagree with him. Where is your thought process as far as consistent lineups are concerned? Maybe not even with this one this year, to his point, but do you like a consistent, almost everyday lineup, or are you cool with changing things up?
I'm fine with changing things up more, but to the point you're making before, it's more so towards the second half of the lineup. I like consistency when it comes to the top half of the lineup. So if I got guys that are humming along, and we're talking, and we've talked about that for the last handful of weeks now, when we're talking about the likes of Lindor, Soto, Alonso, and then whoever you choose. I've been saying Vientos for fourth. Like, those are the four guys that I want to see getting the most at bats. And if Nimmo, proves to be whatever, then if he's fifth, sixth, whatever, I really don't care in that sense. But when we're talking about, consistency, it's the top end for me. So 1 through 4, I'm fine. If you got guys that are smashing the ball and doing what they're supposed to do, and they're doing well in those given spots, keep them there. No reason to get cute. No reason to drop someone to get someone. Like, if things are working, allow it to run its course. Now, the back end, if we're playing the matchups, if we're going based off of, the data that says, oh, this person does well against this person does well against that. Like, I understand it. I still have that old school approach in my mind at times where it's like, to Carson's point, it's like, yeah, it would be cool to just run out a 1 through 9 and just say, here, go. You guys had success with this. Keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it. But I think with how things are now, when it comes to so much data, that sometimes it could be, paralysis by over-analysis in a sense. But I don't mind it so much for the second half of the lineup. In terms of the first half of the lineup, I do agree. Like, I like having a set 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, depending on the people we're talking about.
I'll get these two comments, and then we have a super chat from Master Flip, which I think plays into the next evolution of this conversation. So, Master Flip, thank you for the super chat. Get to that in
Appreciate
1 second.
you, Flip.
Carson kind of expounds on his thought by saying, just pick something and stick to it. You don't need to maximize the minimum. If McNeil goes 4 for 4 batting 8th, you don't need to push him up to 5th against a completely different pitcher the next day, which I think falls in line to what you're kind of describing, which is you could play the matchups, but also let's not go crazy with how you're playing those matchups. Zero Cool with a good counterpoint saying the 86 Mets had 8 different lineups that played at least 5 games. There was a lot of mix and match that happened in the 86 team. That was, they had things like, Hojo would play shortstop and Kevin Mitchell would play shortstop, and who would go play? Kevin Mitchell played the outfield and moving things around and depending on who the pitcher was and all that stuff. So I do understand Tim Tuffle, Wally Backman in a sort of, almost straight platoon at second base. So there are schools of thought as far as both are concerned. Maybe I tend to agree with you. I think the first almost 2/3 of your lineup, I would love to see it be static 1 through 6 for me. But with some flexibility there, guys have to get rest days and stuff, and then you have to shake things up a bit. But I think you should save the bottom half to bottom third of where you can start to mix and match. And I think the Mets are kind of doing that. They're just doing it with only the top third of their lineup right now. They're going 1 through 3. Those are our guys no matter what. And I think if you gave Carlos Mendoza a bit of truth serum, he would want somebody to be in that 4 spot consistently. I don't even think he cares who it is. If it's Brandon Nimmo, if it's Mark Vientos, if it's whomever, I think he would like to see somebody get that job and run with it and absolutely not let it go. Which brings me to this sort of counterpoint on the super chat from Master Flip. And thank you for the $4.99, Master Flip. Shout out to you, saying the DH spot is perfect for the cleanup spot. Gives Mendy the ability to pinch hit Winker and Marte late in the game, depending on the matchup. A lot of good strategy in this comment, Ibby. What do you think about that?
I think the way it's worded by Flip, I think that's spot on. Like, I also know that a lot of us aren't big fans of the idea of Marte being in a spot like that, but the way that it's worded there, it makes all the sense in the world from a strategy standpoint. So I can't go against it, but like on paper right now, when I look at something like that, it's like, Marte cleanup. Like, and I think it also goes to the point that we've been making before, and this is obviously an off-season conversation, or even a deadline conversation, I should say, where we've mentioned, like, is there room for another bat on this team, and could they attack something that where they can put something in, where maybe they want something that they could plug in at that 4 or 5 spot that's a little bit more consistent. You know, I'm sitting here hoping that the likes of a Vientos can take that 4 spot. But to what Flip is saying, I can't disagree with it because it makes all the sense in the world.
I think there is again, this is more of a deadline off-season conversation, Ibby, like you said, but I think there is definitely the opportunity to add a piece to the offense this season. A lot of it depends on what you continue to get from Acuna, what you continue to get from Starling Marte. Is Marte healthy? Is Winker healthy? But I don't think you're looking at like a major acquisition. I think you're looking at a Winker-esque acquisition, somebody who can slot in and play a significant chunk for you, but isn't necessarily a starter. Milo Mitchell breaking some news here on the show. Danny Young to the IL. Danny Young goes on the IL, following it up by saying 15-day left elbow sprain, no lefty in the pen now. That is a bummer because Zero Cool says Danny Young has a 44% K rate against lefties so far. I know that the lefty specialist has gone the way of the dinosaur, and Danny Young is the guy that a lot of us Mets fans thought was going to be out of this bullpen first, either for Dediel Nunez or most recently for Brooks Raley. But with the AJ Minter news, and it looks like Minter's going to be out a long time, maybe for the season if he gets surgery, which is a brutal hit to this bullpen because Minter has been absolutely fantastic. But now the Mets are, at least in the short term, no lefties in the bullpen. That's not the news that any of us wanted. It's not where this show was hoping to go today, but that's the news we found out. Ibby, that's not great.
No, and obviously that's the first thing I thought of once I saw it come into the chat saying how, Danny Young is out. I'm like, oh, no lefties now. And even thinking about what's down low, I don't even think we have anyone to call up, do we? I don't think we do. So we're going sans lefty, unless I'm missing someone off the top of my head. I don't think we have anybody.
Who is Tyler Zuber a left-hander?
I'm not sure off the top of my head. I don't know if he is. I don't think he is he?
Armand saying per Tim Healy, the Mets have called up Chris Davinsky from AAA. I mean, this is one of those things.
Righty. Yeah.
He's a righty. This is one of those situations where you're going to call up somebody because you have to in the immediate term. I don't know if Chris Davinsky is going to be the long-term solution here. I would actually doubt that he is. And it's also a situation. Thank you, Armand. Zuber is right.
Zuber's right. Yeah. Okay.
This is so stupid and unscientific, but this is so dumb, but I'm going to just admit it. Tyler Zuber just feels like the name of a guy who's left-handed. And if you've watched baseball long enough, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You know what I'm saying?
See that, yeah. I definitely could. I could definitely see that. But again, I don't know the numbers. And there's Carson with Genesis Cabrera and Anthony Gose, former outfielder Anthony Gose, are the lefties in Syracuse at the moment. So, I mean,
Genesis Cabrera is probably going to be the guy in the short term.
I would think it's probably Cabrera. But at the same time, go based off of the numbers, go based off of the data, righty or lefty. If they're good against lefties, I know there's a lot of righties that are good against lefties. I don't know them off the top of my head at the moment in terms of, what's down low, but I would assume also that Cabrera is probably the choice. It's unfortunate. Like losing Minter in itself sucks, and odds are it's probably going to be for the season, especially the fact that it's almost May in a day. And then we're talking about the lat, which we've seen, happen to a lot of pitchers over the last couple of years. And, the amount of time it takes, the amount of time to ramp back up, odds are you're not going to see him. And it's probably something he's not going to want to rush either. So it sucks. It's unfortunate. We always talk about wanting at least 2 lefties in the pen. It's always a thing that Mets fans would love to have. And now, we finally have 2 that are doing pretty well. And of course they just go the way of getting hurt, but hopefully, Young isn't there for too long. And like I said, losing Minter definitely sucks because that's also not only the lefty itself, but the fact that he's a big game type of pitcher, a guy that you would want in spots, a guy that's been there before, especially when it comes to the playoffs. Like you would want something like that, and losing that definitely hurts.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a total bummer. It's a total bummer for him too. Like this is a guy who, I'm not forecasting the end of his career. Relief pitchers can be around for a very long time, but AJ Minter's not a young guy. AJ Minter's coming off of a year where he was already injured and had a surgically repaired hip, and you saw the dividends like we were all talking about in the offseason. Like, man, what a steal this guy could be. You look at how David Peterson pitched so much better after his hip was fixed. And this is a guy who had to this point had a better career than David Peterson. So you could point to like, oh man, if AJ Minter can get back to this, that's going to be fantastic. And, a lot of people wanted, what's his name? Maybe the dude who signed with the Dodgers, the relief pitcher that signed with the Dodgers, who's the lefty whose name is escaping me at the moment.
Tanner Scott?
Thank you. Yes, Tanner Scott. Folks wanted him, and with good reason. But with AJ Minter, when you started to compare those numbers, when we did our offseason show after one of our offseason shows after the signing, and you look at the bang for buck, I mean, Minter was going to be, if he pitched anywhere near what he had done in his career with Atlanta, he was going to be an absolute steal because he had seasons that were better than Tanner Scott. Now it looks like Tanner Scott obviously on the trajectory up, and Minter is kind of who he is at this point. But so far in the 1 month that he was here on the team, you were seeing that Minter was giving you unbelievable value for his contract. So it is really unfortunate to see him go down the way that he did. And it makes that great signing, the savvy signing of bringing back a guy like Brooks Raley, all that much more important. Gary alluded to it on the broadcast last night. Look, you think a guy's out. Yeah, you think a guy's out with Tommy John, it's going to be a long time, and it usually is. But remember, relief pitchers can get ready quick. And so he's already throwing bullpens. A rehab assignment is not far off. So at least it seems as though this is a long-term situation that the Mets will be able to stem the tide on. But this right now in the immediate term, with Minter going down and now Young being out for at least the short term, this is kind of a bummer. You need a lefty in that bullpen, at least one.
You definitely do, and it's again pushing this pitching lab a little bit further to get the most out of the ones that are going to be here, whether it's the ones that are already up or the ones that they're going to call up. So everyone wants to question and wonder how long can the wheels go on this pitching lab, and how long can these pitchers do what they're doing? Well, it's going to get pushed a little bit more, especially now it's these injuries that are starting to pile, because look, it's a game of 162 and it's always going to happen. It's all about the next man up, as somebody mentioned in the chat. So hopefully the ones that do come in to replace, they can do their job. We can keep the wheels moving on this runaway train.
Yeah. And this is the other thing. I didn't want to say it, but I'm going to bring it up now because it is flying around in the chat, and for the benefit of the people, especially who listen to this after the fact on Spotify or Apple, and they don't have the support of the visual. I do think, I didn't want to speculate, and I'm still not speculating, but again, because this is in the chat, if you're listening to this later and you only listen to our show and you never have the opportunity to watch it, especially live, I think this is a point we have to bring up. Carson says, elbow strain is Tommy John surgery territory. That's not an optimistic injury to wait out. Again, not saying that Carson knows anything, not saying that we know anything. It's not best to speculate on this, but yes, when you hear certain things, elbow strain, forearm strain, triceps pain, all that area, that has to do with right in here, just below and just above the elbow, it could be a precursor to a Tommy John situation. So now all of a sudden, again, right now I'm just going to look at this as a short-term injury because that's all the Mets are saying, but it is possible that one of these guys, Genesis Cabrera, Anthony Gose, will have to be a factor in this bullpen, even if Brooks Raley comes back and is as good for the Mets as he was before his Tommy John surgery.
Yeah, it sucks all around just to talk about this. And I see Carlos in the chat mentioning as well, like this type of news derails a 100% positive episode. Look, we're still going to keep the vibes up, but it is something that obviously we have to talk about because it is, again, to go back to the resolve of this team. I feel confident that, and that in itself as a fan, like I know others aren't going to feel this way because me and John are a little bit different than many when it comes to how we feel about the team and, skewing a little bit more towards the positive, but still being real about things. But still, if this is anything, I think it's a testament to what this team has done to this point. trusting the process, trusting Stearns, trusting the coaching, and trusting that when they put guys in spots that they are going to succeed. Does it suck losing these types of players right now? Yes, especially early in the season. Yes. Does it suck that it might be for the entire season? Yes. But I also trust that they will be able to find players that can go out there and provide and help this team still win.
And that's why you can never, I know the adage is you can never have too much pitching, but you look at it and you start to see this numbers game, and you start to, Ibby, when the Mets come out in the first month and they have, the best team ERA in the league. And, I know they no longer have the best bullpen ERA in baseball, but it's still near the top, when we have blow up outings, like from, Jose Urania doing mop up duty and giving up 5 or 6 runs or whatever, you're going to have that bullpen ERA fluctuate. But when you're looking at the Mets bullpen as a group and you're like, wow, these guys are doing so well. Even Danny Young, who was for a moment the weak link, you start to look and you're like, man, how can we move anybody out of here? When Daniel Nunez is ready, he's too electric of an arm to not call up. Then all of a sudden, Danny Young has a couple great outings against lefties. He's no longer the guy that you're worried about moving. Then Minter goes down. Then you have Jose Butto, who has a bit of a blow up coming in spots where honestly he shouldn't be used. And I saw those comments from earlier. I think it was from Rosie K saying he shouldn't come in with men on base. He absolutely should not.
No.
And shout out to him for getting 2 clean innings yesterday and looking really, really sharp again. But all of a sudden then it was like, man, what do you do with Butto? Butto doesn't have options left. What do you do? Well, now guys, you look, Minter's down maybe for the year, at least for a couple months. That's best case scenario. I think I forgot who the pitcher was, not on the Mets. There was somebody last year who had a lat injury and missed 4 months. So it's like, you miss 4 months. That's without surgery. You get surgery, the season's over. Now you're looking at Danny Young, who knows what's going to happen. But all of a sudden now it's like, man, Daniel Nunez, easy to find a spot for him, right? No disparaging like the guy they called up today to take the roster spot in the short term, but you just don't know, which brings me to, I think, the next point of the conversation. And this one came first from Milo, but I think it's worth addressing across the board. Yeah. David Robertson has good splits against lefties. No, not just David Robertson. Obviously he was here. He was very good for us. Had a good year last year, still sitting as a free agent. I see other people mentioning, just wild. Drew Smiley, Will Smith, Drew Pomerantz, Brad Week, all out there. David Robertson as well, per spot track from Armand. So there are options outside of the organization. Do you think the Mets need to look into someone who's a more proven commodity to go along with Brooks Raley, or do you think they should keep it in-house for now?
I think how this team has operated to this point, I'm assuming that they're going to see what they have in-house to start, and then, or unless they already have an idea off of everything that they've seen, whether it be at this level or AAA or even lower, if they feel as though that they have to go, then they'll go out right away. But I would assume that they're going to start with what they have and allow it to play out, and then potentially attack those names. Because if I'm being honest, I don't expect those names to be, taken up by other teams like right away. So there's not really a rush on it. I think they're going to allow it to play out, give opportunity to the guys that are here, and then reassess.
I agree. Carson with a good counterpoint. David Robertson is also 78 years old, unfortunately. And to which D says 78 years young. I think they are going to stay within the organization. And I think it's 2 reasons, Ibby. I think one, to your point, this is how Stearns operates. He's not reactionary. And these guys are not going to get snatched up. They're free agents right now for a reason. They're not going to get snatched up because the Mets all of a sudden have a need for a lefty. It's not like other teams are going to be like, oh, the Mets need a lefty. Let's go sign Drew Smiley right now. That's not how that's going to work. The second thing is they just went technically outside of the organization to bring Brooks Raley back. Now, you could say he was kind of sort of a part of the org in the fact that the last time he pitched was for the Mets, but you know what I mean. He was not under contract. He was not in the organization currently. They go out of the organization, they bring him back. They identify, what could be a plus player for them, and they go get that person. So, and Carlos Ramos saying scheduled to throw, scheduled to start throwing in June. I don't know. where that timeline is, but again, it's soon-ish. And so you look at him, and then you look at Daniel Nunez, who is a guy who can get righties and lefties out. So I think when you look at those two players being on the horizon, you only really have to stem the tide for a little bit of time. The one thing you need to not do is burn out the guys that you trust. The best part about this Mets bullpen through the first month of the season, month plus, whatever, is that they have all pitched in high leverage situations. Now, you don't want to use certain guys in certain spots. Jose Buto coming in with, runners on, not starting an inning. Sure, that's probably a lesson they learned. But all of these guys, whether it's even Danny Young or Max Kranick and Brazaban, they've all pitched in save spots. They've all pitched late and close. They've all pitched in these games that you need to have. And when you start to lose guys that you trust, what you start to do is you push the other guys that you trust harder. One of the things that kept this bullpen fresh was the fact that Mendoza felt like he could trust everybody. And when you bring in guys that he's not sure of, you have to resist the temptation to lean heavily on the guys that you do trust and blow them out the way that the Mets did, quite frankly, last year with Reed Garrett when they had no other choice.
Exactly. And I'm just looking at the chat right now, and I'm seeing how Carson, maybe you can confirm this for me, with Joander Suarez being promoted today to AAA, another lefty. Unless I'm mixing up with somebody else, Carson, maybe you can double check. I believe Joander had been doing very well to this point. I feel like I've seen Daniel Wexler on Twitter talking about him for a while, and I feel as though he's having a strong year to this point. And if so, it's even better. And a guy that we could see potentially getting a shot at some point. But correct me if I'm wrong, and I think he is having a pretty solid year, unless I'm mixing up with somebody else. But
I don't have his numbers in front of me, but I did look him up earlier because I was not familiar with the name. And when I saw the promotion, I did look him up. I mean, the numbers look good. I don't have them straight in front of me, but yeah, if Carson does or anybody else wants to pull them up. Also, Carson saying Rayleigh was transferred to the 60-day for Davinsky replacing Young, I believe. So, some just roster manipulation there, but guys get put on the 60-day. It's retroactive to certain times and things like that. Again, with Rayleigh, he's closer than you might imagine, but they're still not going to rush him back, nor should they, right? Guys
careful. You got to be careful when it comes to saying the retroactive, because I know a lot of Mets fans were like freaking out the other day when they moved Manaea to the 60, I believe. People were like, "Oh my God, what's going on?" I was like, people, we've been doing this for years. Do we not understand what retroactive means? Like, what are we doing here? But people were having like a complete conniption and meltdown over the fact that he got transferred to the 60. But let's just relax, guys. It's okay. Nothing's changing.
That was actually going to be my example. So it's funny. It's funny that you brought that up. Carson says, Suarez isn't a lefty. Never mind. Different guy I'm thinking of. Don't listen to me. Well, there you go.
There
Carson,
we go. Forget that.
Done. We just got a super chat from Zero Cool, but because our show's a little shorter today, I'd like to head into the break, out of the break, and jump right into this comment from Zero Cool. So Zero, thank you for the super chat. $5 on it.
Zero.
We will get into that as soon as we come back from the break. If you're watching live for the first time, you're like, I don't want to sit through a break. Don't worry. It is just a quick 30-second reset and an ad spot that we use for the audio version of the show. So it's John Saponaro, it's Matt Ibanez, it's Til Mets Do Us part, live on YouTube, live on Twitter. We will be right back. Yo, just like that, we are back with Til Mets Do Us part, live on YouTube, live on Twitter, like we are each and every single Wednesday. If you haven't already, like the video. It helps the algorithm, helps other Mets fans like you, like ourselves, find the video. Over 180 of you with us here for the live stream. That's usually where we sit, somewhere between 150, 300. Sometimes we get up to the 400 territory. We've had some really high water marks, Ibby, in the like 1,200 and 1,500. Love to get back to that, but in due time, we appreciate everybody is here rocking with us. But like I said, if you haven't already, like the video. And the best way to participate in this show, especially in the live version, is to subscribe to the channel. That's to ensure that you can actually leave comments in the live chat. You cannot take part in the live chat unless you subscribe to the channel. Super chats, we've gotten a few already, are always appreciated. That's another way that you can ensure, absolutely ensure, because if we get a super chat, we are going to address it no matter what we are talking about here on the show. Hit the like button or the gorilla will get you. The gorilla, okay?
The girl, okay.
The gorilla. What is
People
this?
care about the gorilla.
Okay. I mean, come on. What are we? Knicks are in the playoffs. Okay. We're talking about gorillas. Okay. Anyway, Ibby, before we get into that aforementioned super chat, let's hit him with a quick message first from Independent Safes.
Absolutely, John. IndependentSafes.com. Independent safes are protecting homes and businesses with secure residential and commercial safes. Fireproof peace of mind in every corner. Visit IndependentSafes.com today for security that stands strong. And I mean, I don't have anyone that's really making me angry, upset. I mean, I'm sure some people want at some point during the week wanted to put Jose Buto, or Buto, however you say it, more like Butto lately, but still Jose Buto into said safe. But he bounced back last night, so maybe it's not him. I don't really have anyone off the top of my head, but I did see a comment. I wasn't aware of this because again, I don't follow because I refuse to. But apparently, as always, certain radio people are saying things about Soto or whatever it may be, even though the Mets are winning. So, yeah, can we call out the stupid radio host and fans that are calling out Soto for the team scoring 1 million runs a game and winning? Look, I don't know who said person is. I don't need to say a name.
I bet you could guess.
I'm sure I can. And honestly, I don't need to talk about that because if anything, and I'll get to this in a moment, with some of the news that broke yesterday, thanks to the Wall Street Journal, about how certain things might be sold over the next, year or so, where people are looking to buy. It looks like certain people might have to start learning Japanese because maybe getting shipped out of here because of said potential buyer of certain network. But other than that, yes, I'll put Jose Urena, as Carson just put it, into the safe. And his pigeon arm. We'll get rid of him because he's been awful. And it's sad to say this, but I was getting just a tad uneasy once he came in and they just started ripping the ball. And I'm having flashbacks of what happened on Saturday. But all in all, we'll put Urena in there. We'll lock him in, throw away the key, toss it into the river. IndependentSafes.com. They're taking care of you. Let them know that Til Mets sent you. $99, free shipping. Let them know that we sent you over there. And yeah, all good stuff.
Armand saying Jeff McNeil playing center field should be in the safe, which normally I would agree with. Ibby, loved your video that you put out with the It's Always Sunny reference in there. But I will say this, if Jeff McNeil playing center field a couple times a week gives Luis Angel Acuna the ability to stay in the lineup, I'm not going to put that in the safe because Luis Angel Acuna needs to be in the lineup. Now, would I rather have the more athletic person, the younger person, the speedy person playing center field? I would, but I think the Mets logic here is we know what Acuna is at second base. He's a plus defender. He is elite. Why mess with his tandem with Francisco Lindor? Why have the kid go out and play a different position when he's been uber productive? Just allow him to be who he is. And we think Jeff McNeil can go stand out there and catch, most simple fly balls. And I think that that's not crazy. I don't want him playing center field, especially when you see what Tyrone Taylor can do. But I do think that there is something to be said about, in this case, why it's not the worst thing in the world.
I do want to talk about that defensive inning last night shortly, but I do want to bring these up real quick. Certain ex-Philly who can straight up kiss my ass, Jason Worth. I'll toss him in the safe, sure. Thank you for reminding me of that, Rosie, and that Charlie saying he wouldn't even bother wasting a safe on Jason Worthless. That guy, I don't care about what you think. The first thing I thought of when I saw those comments was that Mad Men quote where it's like, "How do you sleep with yourself?" I don't even think about you. I don't even know who you are or whatever. So that's the first thing that I thought of, because it's like I don't give a damn what you think, Jason Worth. Yankee fans, Mets fans, like no one cares about you. You didn't play for either. Keep your mouth shut. Like no one cares. You're a retired ball player. Bye. Like adios. So yeah, Jason Worth, again, kiss my ass.
Yeah, bad, absolutely dumb, dumb comment. Like, what are you talking about, dude? Where's Jason? Where is he even from? Where's that guy from? You know what I mean? Like, I don't even know. I don't know where he was born and where he grew up.
Probably the same
like,
place as Brandon Marsh.
Like
That
God.
whole cantaloupe conversation we had last week.
Yeah. Just like on a fucking marsh. Like, what is he from, the swamp? Like, oh my God, dude, get the hell out of here with all that nonsense. Anyway, Zero Cool, thank you for being patient. We're going to get to his super chat, $5 on the super chat, saying Senga can't pitch on 4 days rest, so they have to go to a bullpen game today. If you go to a 6-man when Minaya and Montas return, that will shorten the pen. That is a good point. Now, I think out of necessity, at some point this season, the Mets will pitch Senga on 4 days rest. But I think the bigger point, Ibby, that Zero has pointed out is very true, that right now, in this stretch of 13 games, one off day, 13 games in a row, it's a lot of games in a month. I think you're seeing the use of that 6-man rotation. You're seeing how they have to use the opener. They have to be creative. When these other starters come back, when they go to a full 6-man, if you have 6 starters, 6 legitimate starters, that means that you're one person short in the bullpen. So, this math that we're talking about with bullpen pieces and all this stuff, this is a factor from Zero Cool. So it's one that we're not thinking of now because the immediate need is in the bullpen, and Manaya's not coming back yet. Montas isn't coming back yet. Paul Blackburn's not coming back yet, although he's the closest.
Yeah.
So it's a back burner, but it is something to keep in mind because the simple math is one more starter, one less reliever. Good point here from Zero Cool.
Absolutely a great point. Again, thank you for the supers, Zero Cool. Look, it's like I said, it's something that is eventually going to be a talking point and something to worry about. But I look at it right now and I say, cross that bridge when we get there. Like, we got to make sure that things continue to flow properly for Minaya, who's throwing a little bit more now. I know Montas is throwing a lot more now. So hopefully they can stay on track. And once we cross that bridge, we'll figure things out as things, progress. But let's get there first. So for now, it's survive and figure it out to the best that you can, to the point that John was making before about making sure we don't burn the better half of the pen out. Don't burn these guys that we trust the most because of this issue. Let's try to find some others that can help us move it along. And then, of course, once the likes of Minaya and Montas come back, we'll figure it out.
This one from Rosie saying Springfield, Illinois is where Jason Worth is from. And here's what I'll say.
I'm sure John's been there, so he has an idea of Springfield, Illinois.
I have not been to Springfield, Illinois, but a couple things I want to say. One, Rosie, thank you for looking.
Thank you so much, Rosie.
I'm sure this is true, and this is a slam on Jason Worth, not on Rosie. I don't even care enough to fact check this and make sure it's true. That's how little I care about Jason Worth. But Rosie, thank you for pulling it up.
Thank you so much, Rosie.
Ibby, to answer your question, I have not been to Springfield, Illinois, but I bet you I've got a pretty good idea because I have been to a lot of places like Springfield, Illinois.
Fair enough. And
I'm going to say,
I got to call you out real quick, Odd, saying that, Frankie Smokes is still fat. I don't know. The one picture I saw of him throwing in the outfield at City, he looked like he heard you and Keith call him fat. It felt like he's been lifting a little bit more. It looks a little bit bulkier, but on the better side. But either way, I think like he took it to heart when everyone was saying he looked fat during spring and during this build back up for him. I feel like he's been hitting the weights a little bit more. But I don't know if he looked that fat. He looked a little bit more in shape, but we'll see.
I want to bring up this one too, Ibby. This is from before our conversation kind of got abruptly stopped because of the Danny Young news, and then it turned into something else with the bullpen and the pitching, and then we went into the break, and then we had Zero Cool super chat. This is from when we were talking about the lineup, and I think this is a really good comment from Carlos Ramos, who says, to be honest, Flip, and Master Flip was the one with the super chat about it.
Yeah,
I agree with you, but I would say it's better for the 5th spot, talking about the DH position.
Right.
I'd rather have Vientos 4 when he's in the lineup and then put Winker or Marte in the 5 spot and still be allowed to flip for either Winker or Marte, whoever's not starting, depending on matchups. I think that's a really good point from
I think that's
Carlos,
good. Yeah.
and I agree with that. I would rather have, honestly, even if it's not Vientos, I think Vientos is best suited for it, but I'd rather have someone in the 4 spot who's going to be in there every day. And I like Winker a little bit more in the 4 spot. I don't love Winker or Marte in that spot, but Winker's okay to me there. To me, Marte's not a 4 hitter. I know he hit the home run and, he gets some big hits, but I don't really want Marte hitting 4th. I really don't.
No,
and that's part of it too.
And yeah, like I said, like even if we're talking about something that a player does well, hits the home run, like we just said with Marte, it's still like it comes across as ugly on paper. And I think of, it's one thing to have the recency bias of a home run, but then thinking about the bigger picture of what he's been doing and how he's looked in certain spots, you're just like, man, this guy just doesn't have it anymore. And then you have these spurts of things that happen. Everyone's like, oh, look, he's back. It's like, I don't know. Not so much. But I would agree that I think that the better fit, now that I see that, I would say that 5 is better. So like I've been saying, I hope that Vientos can stay hot and find that power stroke and really cement himself as the 4 hitter.
Let's be honest, man. I know there's been a lot of discourse, especially on this show. Hebrew Hammer has been a big proponent of this, where Vientos should hit 2, and people saying Vientos is more suited to be a natural 3 hitter than Pete is, and all that stuff. That's a conversation, Ibby, to me, for another season. I don't even think that's a conversation for this season right now. I just think you have to kind of roll with the Lindor, Soto, Alonso thing for, I don't want to say never, anything can happen, but I just think that that's something that needs to kind of stay for basically this whole year. So I'd like to see Vientos just be able to Rosie's point, hit for more power to be in that 4 spot. I don't need to
further.
See, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, just to further your point about keeping those 3, especially at the top as is, and not moving things back, talking about, flexibility within the lineup, thinking that, oh, this guy could bat 2, just drop these to 3 and 4. Look, I said this, and I just, I reposted it on our TikTok this morning, where I was putting up an old video of talking about how, Juan Soto, regardless of what he's doing, in terms of power, presence alone has done so much for the likes of Lindor and Alonso, and you put him between those 2. And look, you look at the home numbers. Shout out to Michael Mayer over at Mesmerized for posting these numbers this morning. Pete Alonso and Francisco Lindor are obviously, the front and back end of Soto right now in terms of the lineup. And you look at their numbers at home at Citi this year. Lindor slash 418, 452, 782 with a weighted runs created plus of 238. Alonso 346, 433, 673, a 207 weighted runs created plus. You don't mess with that. You keep it as is. You don't move anything. You keep it as is, because that's incredible production. Incredible.
Yeah, it's great. And I know, we're not going to give credence to the comment that Brad was sort of alluding to. We pulled up briefly, which is, whether the people on the radio or the people, in the stands, the Mets fans who are down on Juan Soto. I mean, I tweeted it yesterday, and the point remains the same. It'd be Juan Soto hit 2 outs yesterday, well over 100 miles an hour. And one of them was to the other way, that if that's a foot over, it's a double, it's another extra base hit. Not only, I will admit, Soto has not been vintage Soto. That can be true. But what can also be true is he's hit into some hard luck. I think, did I bring it up on the show last week or the week before, whatever it was? If you gave me back half of Juan Soto's hard hit balls for outs, just half of them, let them be hits, no one would be complaining. And that trend, unfortunately, has sort of continued a bit. Now looks like his timing's a bit better, and he's coming out of the funk a bit. And you want to see the only thing, none of it's concerning. The only thing that touches on concerning is just how many ground balls he's hitting. But other than that, Ibby, there is not a problem with his game. And if you just give me back half of the hard hit outs and turn them into hits, no problem. Not a problem. No one would even have a thought about complaining.
I get it, and I understand where people want to poke holes, but based off of the money and what you expect from him. But again, like the guy's weighted runs created plus right now is 120. Like he's still he's still putting the ball in play. He's ripping singles, ripping doubles. Like, yeah, you want the power, but everything is still there as he's working through. And I know that, shout out to Will Salmon, guest of the show, 3-time guest, put up a column this week on The Athletic talking about, where has the Soto shuffle gone? We haven't seen it. And he asked Juan about that. And he said, I'm going to eventually, bring it back, when it feels proper. Like you're going to see it. And I think that that's just him trying to find or rediscover that groove, which is going to bring forth that confidence. I'm not saying he's not confident right now. I just feel like he thinks that he should be doing more. And whether that's because he thinks of where he is as a ball player or because of the contract, whatever it may be, I think he thinks that he should be doing more. And I think once he lets that that weight drop off the shoulder a little bit and he starts doing what he believes he should be doing, then you'll see said confidence return. But again, the numbers he's putting up are still phenomenal for any ball player. And if that's the worst that you're going to see out of Juan Soto, you're in a good spot because the best is still yet to come. So you're in a great spot. But again, it's about the transformation of the lineup and the ones that are around him and people that want to say, oh, if it wasn't for Lindor and Alonso, like we wouldn't be where we are. It's like, well, they wouldn't be where they are if it wasn't for Juan Soto then, because he's the one that's allowing this team and these players to thrive the way that they are so they can carry the team. So again, no reason to cry about it. No reason to get upset about it. Don't boo the guy. Cheer the guy. Make him wanted. Make him feel good. He is, again, here for 15 years, one of the best players in the game.
Yeah. It's also like, well, there's that like hypothetical exercise that people like to have, and sometimes they take it too seriously. Like it's one of those things. It's an interesting hypothetical to bring up. It's an interesting rhetorical question almost, but it doesn't have any basis in reality. And you and I kind of talked about this off air briefly, where it's like, well, imagine where the Mets would be without Pete Alonso and Francisco Lindor. Okay. But luckily we don't have to.
I don't got to worry about
Alonso
that.
And Francisco
They're on the team. What am I going to worry about it for?
They're on the team, man. Like, imagine where they'd be. Okay.
Okay. Well,
oh wow. Yeah, that would suck. But
that's so ugly.
They're here.
Oh wait, I don't have to worry about that.
You don't have to worry about it. Now, obviously, Pete's only here for the 1 year guaranteed and stuff, but that doesn't matter. People are saying that about this season in particular. It's like, okay, well, they're on the team, and look where they are with them. It's an insane thought process to have. Armand saying, on Foul Territory today, Jason Worth said he was held up by a Mets fan with a knife. What?
Okay.
That sounds like some John Rocker shit.
What?
Just to be for real.
It really does.
It really does. I mean, if he was held up at knife point, I feel sorry for him.
No,
but like,
of course.
You don't know if that guy's a Mets fan because he's wearing a Mets hat. People all over the world wear Yankees hats. Knife violence happens all over. Oh, never mind. It's Odd Villain. Yo, shout out Odd Villain. That's funny. That's funny. Just for anybody who's listening and watching, any authorities, he said psych. It's a joke. Psych. It's a joke. It's a joke. That's hilarious. Okay, we have a super chat from Zero Cool. Another one from Zero Cool. Shout out Zero Cool.
Thank you, Zero.
$5 on the super chat saying lineup construction is vastly overrated. Unless you have 8 all-stars, why should your lineup be written in stone? The best fourth hitter is Alonso, but ... kind of alluding to the conversation we had earlier. Ibby, I can't, this is sort of the counterpoint to Carson and some other people kind of believing that a lineup, should be a bit more locked in. I don't take huge issue with Zero Cool's point. Not really a question there, but I don't take huge issue with that comment. Alonso is very suited to be your standard 4-hitter, really by the old school metrics or the new school metrics. You know what I mean? He's very much like a power first guy. I know his batting average is much better this year, more akin to what he looked like in his rookie year than any of the years in between. But he does feel like the best suited 4-hitter, but you also need to, sometimes accommodate other players on the team and the benefit that's going to be there. And if Soto likes to hit second, he wants to hit there, then you really do need a guy like Alonso behind him. So, I don't know. I think it's a very fair comment from Zero Cool overall. Kind of flies in the face of what you and I were saying before, though, a little bit.
Yeah, I think it matches what we were saying before. So yeah, I agree with it, and I think that when let me just bring it up again just so I can read it. Yeah, the point I was really bringing up or trying to make before to continue this point is the guys that are more so the mainstays, at least when you look around baseball for the most part, are the stars. Like those are the ones that have like those set spots, and it's the other ones that are kind of the chess pieces that we move around, and it's like we're moving around the studs, if you will, and we keep them in those places. And right now, those three in the front, you don't touch them. And if you had another type of hitter, which again, I know Hebrew is one that's championing for Mark Vantos to be that guy at 2, but right now it's those three. And until you have someone that can plug in to slide those other 2 back one spot, this is the lineup that you get. And again, no reason to be upset about it because they're scoring a lot of runs right now.
Yeah. It's hard to argue with that. I mean, Carlos Ramos, there's nothing to complain about with Soto. We're winning. We're in first place. The team will only improve when Soto fully gets going, which is also a very, very, very accurate point. Ibby, I wanted to bring this one up. Again, we kind of bounced around a little bit just because of the timing of the break show being a little shorter today and the timing of the super chats. But this one from Jose Lopez Maya saying, in the 80s, there weren't as many freak and sometimes dangerous injuries as there are now. Maybe the way that players, especially pitchers, train should be reevaluated. That is a very succinct, very fair comment. I just don't know what the answer is, because that's a question and a comment that a lot of people have had now for a decade and a half, as long as, Tommy John injuries have become more and more frequent. It's a thought process people have had, but people who are smarter than us, people who have medical degrees, people who get paid to evaluate this, to keep pitchers healthier for the sake of, if nothing else, the investment that the teams are making, can't figure it out. So I don't want to poo-poo this as nothing. It's a very succinct, very smart comment. I just don't think there's an answer because we would have seen it.
You're not going to see a change, unfortunately, because velocity gets paid, and these guys are throwing as hard as they can. They're going max effort, and we just had someone in our minors throw 104 miles an hour. Like, it's insane, and nothing's going to get reevaluated to fix anything, because until teams stop searching out for guys that throw harder, because these hitters are all world, so they have to throw as hard as they can to blow it by them. It's crazy to think that now someone who throws 95, maybe they top at 95, that's almost considered not enough now, unless you're like a guy that has fantastic breaking stuff on top of it and you locate extremely well. You're looking at guys that got to throw 98, 99, 100, and now it's 100 plus. Yeah. It's insane. And again, when you just think about the sport in general, it's an unnatural movement. Look, I'm a nobody, but when I think of myself and when I played, and like the max that I ever hit was like mid 80s, and I realized how hard I was putting the effort into my body to do that and how my arm would feel after that. It was just like, I don't know how people reach another 10 miles an hour, 15 miles an hour. And now that would be another 20 miles an hour if we just saw someone throw 100 and 400. Like, it's crazy to think how players are reaching these heights and these levels. I know people are a lot more talented and gifted as opposed to who I am, but the point still remains. It's like, you're putting in so much strain and effort on the elbow, on the shoulder, on the tricep, like all these things, the interconnect that we were talking about before. It's wild, and it's not going to change, because no matter what, and I was talking with someone yesterday about this actually, no matter what, these guys are doing everything in their power to do anything to reach the show, obviously, but to do it to the point where they can reach that contract and get that money. That's what they want. They want to get paid, and nothing's going to change, because that's what keeps on getting rewarded.
Can I know this is sounding like a setup. I'm not trying to put you on the spot. Can I ask you a personal question, if you don't mind?
Sure.
Just because you sort of alluded to it. Yeah. You're bigger than I am. You're taller than I am. You're broader than I am. Yeah. When you were able to throw, mid 80s, do you how tall are you and how much did you weigh? approximately? If
I
you know,
would
if you know
say
off the
at
top of your
that
head?
time, oh, I'm like 6 foot 6'1", and I've always floated around anywhere between 190 and 205,
Right.
depending.
So you're not a small guy, was my point. Because I
Yeah,
didn't want to assume your measurements. But yeah, you're not
yeah,
a small guy. And a lot of, yeah, you get the Tyler McGills who are 6'7" and all these guys who are, well over 6'5", but
yeah,
6'1", 200 pounds is not small. Now,
yeah.
again, you're right. Like you're not a pro athlete, so you don't have
No.
some of the conditioning and the maximizing of what your body can physically do, but you did play for a long time at a significant sort of level, right? Like
Yeah.
to the point where like that's nothing to sneeze at. But it's like, yeah. And to go back to the old Tom Glavine quote, Tom Glavine said in his life he never threw a baseball as hard as he physically could. And you're talking about throwing and what that felt like and the amount of push that you had to put to throw the ball as hard
And
as you could.
mind you, for me at least, that was max effort.
Correct.
Max effort. So it's
Right.
not like I was never sitting at that number. I was literally maxing out at that number. So it's wild. And unfortunately, it's not going to change. And not until something changes within the game, which I don't think it's going to happen, because athletes are getting stronger, athletes are throwing harder, hitters are getting better. They're, they can basically hit anything out like it's on a tee. But again, these guys are throwing. It's wild how it's like I always bring it back to that Duran Lindor matchup in Minnesota a couple weeks ago now, where you're watching Lindor, people give him shit because he struck out, and it's like it's a 3-1 count, and he gets a 98-mile-an-hour splinter that dives in on him, and then he gets blown away with 102. Like, and people see that that's a guy that's getting paid, has an opportunity in the big leagues, and everyone wants to do that. And these guys are going to keep on throwing as hard as they can and experimenting with different pitch types and grips, which can then lead to injury as well. Like, and it doesn't help that baseball doesn't help. The MLB doesn't help in terms of grips. So the constant changing of the ball and not being able to hold it and how it feels, throwing a cue ball, trying to throw it hard. Like, there's a lot of things that are improper with everything. I don't see change because, number one, I don't trust baseball. And number two, as long as these people keep on getting paid this way, everyone's going to keep on trying to do it.
Are you talking shit about the mud from the Delaware water gap? No, it's true though. I mean, look, I played baseball until I was in college, and, you and I were talking, like nothing to do with this show. I just started playing. I'm 38 years old. I just started playing in a hardball men's league again.
Yeah.
But I'm much smaller than you are. I'm all of 5'6". I've never weighed more than like 170 pounds, and that was heavy for my size. And I've never pitched. I've played a lot of baseball, played all over the diamond. I've never pitched, and I've never caught because, honestly, I didn't have the arm to do it. The maximum that I had ever thrown off of a mound was probably 10 miles per hour slower than what you threw, like coming out and trying to throw off of a mound. Now, again, this is with really no training as far as pitching goes, like really pushing off and stuff. But I think I was somewhere around like 78 miles an hour. And that was also me throwing like max effort. And I'm pretty good. Like, my arm in the field is fine. But just to be able to make those throws like that, like, I can't even fathom it. And again, that's acknowledging that there are major league players who are over a foot taller than me and have almost 100 pounds on me. But it's just like, that's insane. Yeah, John the Italian mini tank.
No, I was loving this
like
one.
Mario on that last mushroom. Yo, for real. Like, listen, like it's just look, this is not Ibby and I waxing poetic about the times that we've spent playing baseball.
No.
There are a lot of people, and there's some really good comments in here that I want to get to with regards to this discussion. I'll bring up Carson's first, even though his didn't come up first, just to use him as an example, because Ibby, Carson always talks about how Carson, he tracks stats better than a lot of people. He's super on the cutting edge of what a lot of the new stats really translate to, the advanced statistics, the analytics. But he always admits, he's like, I never played at all. And it's just to put it in perspective for two people who played for a long time, you and I, who were, let's be honest, never good enough to play professional ball really like at any level, let alone major leagues. And it's just like that, to answer that question, going all the way back to Jose's kind of point, it's just like, it's so impossible. And Carson to that end says, pitching is an irregular motion. It's prerequisite stress on muscles that do regularly move, that do regularly move in these functions 100+ times an appearance. An odd villain with 3 great comments saying, the fact is throwing a baseball overhand is not natural range of motion, which is what Carson said. Believe it or not, underhand tossing, as is the case in softball, actually is, hence the lack of serious injuries and Tommy John.
And why pitchers can throw so much. Yeah.
Correct. And then says, mechanically, the elbow and shoulder are both very unstable areas of the body, so they tend to wear and tear. In baseball, it's more common. And then says, I'm a physical therapist, so I deal with this bullshit daily. I think that
I'm not used to professional. I'm not used to professional OV. I don't know if I like it as much. I like
that. I like that Odd Villain said bullshit in there just to soften it up real quick. And then Odd Villain said, I used to play in college. Thank God I wasn't a pitcher, though. So it's just like, it's that sort of approach.
Yeah.
That it's true. It is wildly unnatural, and Zero cool with a good one. That's the reason why Nolan Ryan is God in caps. Dude threw 262 pitches in one game.
Incredible.
Never had Tommy John surgery and had the highest velocity for 20+ years. That's insane. That guy was just literally, people like, I'm built different. He was built different.
He was built different.
Something up.
Unbelievable.
Absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. Carson saying, I've never played because I don't like being around people. That species just sucks. Just also
that tracks. That's
fair. Also, I wasn't putting you, I think Carson knows this. I wasn't putting him on blast when I said it. It's just like, he's like,
he's been open about that.
No, you and I are just, we don't come from the opinion of like, oh, if you've never played, you're not allowed to know it. And that's why I was like, or you're not allowed to have an opinion. That's why I'm always shouting out like Carson's like he's always got the stats. He's got everything to back it up. So it's like, it's not one perspective. This is not you and I sitting here going like, well, you know, when I played in high school, like, dude, that was fucking 20 years ago. Who cares? Right. No one gives a shit. But the bottom line is, it's just like to think about conceptually, and you're a better example than I am because you're built more like a Major League Baseball player than I am, save for maybe Dustin Pedroia and Jose Altuve. But like, you know, it's just like, it's wild that you look at a guy and you're like, how big is that guy? You're like, oh, he's 1.5 inches taller than Ibby and he weighs 5 more pounds and he throws 28 miles an hour faster on average. And you're like, that's insane. It
also goes to show you how special the likes of a Billy Wagner was, how impressive a Pedro Martinez was. Like, it's crazy. It really is.
Yeah. I mean, listen, those are 2 of the most remarkable guys. I'll add Tim Lincecum in the mix too, because like when you look at Pedro, for his height to be able to get the kind of velocity that he got for the bulk of his career. And if you ever hear him talk, he talks about how his hands are very big for his size. And so just the grip that he was able to get on the ball was so much better than, it was almost like somebody bigger, like his frame, like his frame played up because of the size of his hands. So that's incredible. Tim Lincecum, another guy, it was really because of the delivery. You know, part of it was the deceptiveness of the delivery, but also it was getting the torque from the delivery that allowed his stuff to play up. But also that's why Tim Lincecum was great for 5 years?
Yeah.
And then fell off of a cliff.
2 Cy Youngs, right?
2 Cy Youngs and
3 championships. I don't know if it was 2 Cy Youngs.
I don't remember his off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, and then you look at somebody like Billy Wagner, and to be a natural right-handed thrower, break your arm and then throw 100 miles an hour with the other hand. It's just like those stories just feel made up. They feel absolutely insane. Odd Villain says, shout out to my short king, Pedro. My dad grew up with him in the DR. That's awesome.
That's awesome.
Ibby, we got a couple minutes to play with. We wanted to get out of here about 5 or 10 minutes before the Mets game started. So the only thing we really haven't hit on is what I called yesterday on Twitter, without hyperbole, probably the best defensive inning I have ever seen in my entire life watching baseball. I mean, we've all seen great plays, but I don't think I've ever seen a better 3 outs in one inning than what the Mets did yesterday. And that does not even count the 3 spectacular diving plays that Alonso made at first base, where they got incrementally better than the one before. It's like the first one was good, the second was better, the third one was the best one. Those all happened outside of that inning. What an absolute show the Mets put on defense yesterday.
It was, and I'm someone that absolutely adores and loves great defense, and seeing that inning play out. I was standing in front of my TV watching, just came back from outside, and seeing it happen. I saw the whole inning, so I saw the deflection off Vientos and Lindor makes a play. I go nuts. And it's special when my wife, who watches here and there, but she's like in the kitchen, then she walks over and she goes, "Holy shit." And I go, "Yeah, that was pretty impressive." And then sure enough, 3 pitches later, you see Tyrone. I see the ball hit. I'm like, "Ooh, that's tracking. That's probably double." Like, I'm seeing it, and he's closing ground, and he dives, and he makes the catch, and you hear the roar of the crowd. And we all know City's been on fire. It's an electric factory right now. There's the roar of the crowd off of that catch. Incredible. And then, of course, to then have a tough one-hop, Lindor down to one knee, picks it, throws it, gets the out. Just all in all, one of, like you said, no hyperbole, one of the best 3-out innings from a defensive standpoint that I have probably ever seen. Maybe there's something else that I'm not thinking of because I've watched a lot of baseball in my life, but to me, that was absolutely incredible. Shout out to Lindor, shout out to Tyrone, shout out to, again, Pete, like you said, even though it wasn't that inning. Great defensive play. All in all, yesterday's game was a complete ball game. Like, everything, the hitting, the defense, the bullpen. And we've often said, like, we want to see a complete game. That was a complete game. And like I said before, it came against a team that's highly respected in this game right now as an offensive juggernaut. They're a team that's expected to be a playoff contender. Okay. They got a dark horse candidate, or one can argue right now, an MVP candidate for sure, and Corbin Carroll. They kept them in check for the most part. So again, all in all, fantastic game from top to bottom.
100%. I said, like, in the 30 years that I've been watching baseball, I'm 38 years old. So, like, obviously I don't remember all of that. I just put a number on it. But, like, here, the other people really feel that sentiment. Charlie said, "I've been watching games since the late 50s. Best defensive inning I've ever seen."
Wild.
Like, that's kind of what you're looking at. And then I do want to say, I'm sure, I know you did. I know the people in our Mets group chat did. I'm not sure how many people here have the time or the wherewithal to want to like watch stuff around the league, and maybe you're not super on social media. The people in the live chat probably are, because you're basically on social media right now watching the show. But for the people especially who are listening after the fact, if you did, I know this is not Mets related, if you did not see the catch that Dalton Varsho made minutes after Tyrone Taylor made his catch, somebody tweeted it out. They were like,
my God,
Tyrone Taylor had the catch of the year for 3 minutes. I do not understand, Ibby. I've been to the Savannah Bananas. Okay. Mm-hmm. I've seen people do things that, like, you really shouldn't be able to do. Savannah Bananas are basically like the Harlem Globetrotters of baseball, right? Like, and when you're in, the reason why I say we've all seen the clips online, but I've been at the game, and when you're watching the game on in person, you can get a better feel for the speed of anything, because it's all happening in real time. And it's like, there's no show to them. Like nobody's like softly hitting the ball so a guy can backflip and then catch it.
Right.
You know what
right,
I mean?
Right.
Like, they're doing
or
it.
A guy wearing stilts to hit the ball.
Correct. Exactly. Or, a guy, going behind his back to field a grounder. Like, the grounder's still smoked at him, and he's like, I'm going to turn around and catch it. So, like, that stuff is impressive enough to watch. I have never seen a play, even taking into account the Savannah Bananas show aspect of it, like what Dalton Varsho did yesterday. I mean, he was going back on a ball. He's a very good outfielder. He's looking up. He trips and tumbles and then catches the ball behind his back like this, while still not even fully up. And he did that on the warning track. That was insane.
It was absolutely baffling. I got a text in my group chat posting like it was like it was an attachment to a tweet saying catch of the year. I thought it was going to be the Tyrone Taylor catch. And then I see this play from Varsho. I'm like, what the hell just happened? Like he just sticks his arm out backwards and it just kind of like just plops in. And he made it seem like it was no big deal. And then you got the pitcher just like, holy shit, what the hell? Like tip the cap. Thank you so much. But wild, nonetheless, wild. And yeah, Tyrone, you had the catch of the week, catch of the month, catch of the year for all of a couple of seconds, if you will. But that was just absolutely wild by Varsho.
I know this is a passe comment, like it's not like timely, but that's one of those things. Like you're Tyrone Taylor, you make that play, you think that's like a web, like number one web gem, number one on the Sports Center top 10, and then Varsho does that while playing the same position.
Yeah. Right.
Like, you could sit there and you could go like, if something else happens, even if he makes that catch in left field and you're like, well, technically the center fielder, maybe they'll give the edge. It's like, no. Same position. To be able to go through that is insane. Carson says that's the reason why Varsho is the best defensive outfielder in the league. The motor never runs out. Ibby, I guess this is the last thing we should just spend maybe a minute on. You kind of alluded to it. D says, what about the rumors of Steve Cohen possibly buying SNY? It is being floated that SNY might be for sale. Wilpons still own SNY. If you guys weren't familiar, I'm sure you are. They did not include it in the sale of the Mets. There was a rumor when the Mets were being sold that Steve Cohen offered more money.
Over $4 million.
Correct. $4 billion.
$4 billion. Yes. $4 billion. Yes.
What he spent $2.5 billion on the Mets, I believe.
2.4
billion. There was a rumor that he basically kicked in another $2 billion to try to buy the network, which was not being offered by the Wilpons, and Correct. They turned it down. The reason why they turned it down is because they thought over the long haul, that network would earn them more than $2 billion. I don't know if it has. I'm sure it has, I guess, or whatever is trending.
And SNY was providing things in the positive as opposed to them, owning the Mets and Citi Field and everything, which was putting them into the negative. So they figured we'll dump the negative, we keep the positive.
Exactly, because the network was already established. And once it's not that it's free to run a network, but it's certainly not, but it's cheaper to run a network that's already going than it is to operate a baseball team. You have to constantly pay into the baseball team and the maintenance and all that stuff. The network's a little different. So, but now I think what's changing, the Mets are coming towards, I don't know if it's this year, next year, or the year after that, whatever. The Mets are, the agreement with SNY is ending. And I think now.
No, actually it's not. It's not.
Is it not?
It's not. A lot of people thought that, but I believe the SNY holds the rights to the Mets until something within the contract until 2035. So another decade still, I believe.
Oh, wow.
Okay. I might be wrong and someone could double check. I'm sure Armand will double check me on this, but I believe they own it until 2035, which again, when I see news like this come out, it makes me think, number one, Wilpons and Sterling Equities, whatever, are trying to capitalize on what the Mets are doing right now. So what they're saying is, SNY, we can hold this for as long as you want. If you overpay for this, then yes, we will gladly give it up. So we're going to ask for over market value, even though a lot of regional sports networks are not going for what they used to, because a lot of people are cutting the cord on cable. So that's going to be the most interesting thing. Thank you, Arma, saying that I am correct, 2035. So that's going to be the most interesting thing in terms of what the actual worth of an RSN is at this point, because of the amount of people that continue to leave cable television.
So I apologize for not knowing. I guess I had some bad intel. I was under the impression that was coming to an end sooner than 2035. I think honestly, I think the Wilpons probably should have just cut bait when Cohen offered them $2 billion to buy the network. That's kind of where I would have been at. I don't know about you. I would have been like, oh, it's not for sale. Oh, you know what? It's $2 billion, almost the entire cost of the baseball franchise. Sure, I'll give you the network too. But look, I mean, I think we could all agree the less the Wilpons own, the better. They still do own a lot of the area around Citi Field. I know that in their real estate dealings, and, you know, Cohen got a big win in terms of trying to get a casino built and stuff like that. So he still has to deal with the Wilpons as far as that's concerned. But I think anytime the Wilpons are less involved with the Mets, the better. So I honestly, Ibby, I don't care if Cohen buys it or if they, whatever. I just, anything that gets the Wilpons stink out of further from the team, the better.
Wash it out, do something with the network, center it around the Mets. I feel like there's a lot of things that could be done to make it much better television and actually want people to make sure that whatever they have, that they can make sure that they have SNY be a part of it. And of course, maybe someone else gets in, buys it, MSG or what have you, whoever it may be. But I just want the Wilpons as far away from my franchise as possible. Anything to wash away that stink, like you said, is a win. And hopefully it happens. I hope it's Cohen, because if anything we've learned over this tenure of the Cohens having this team and having their fingerprints over is they actually care. And I feel like SNY would get the much needed love, the much needed TLC, if you will, for a network that it deserves, because it could be a lot better. And I think that if they got their hands on it, they would put the right people in charge to make it a much better RSN.
Mets game's about to start, but let's hit on these things. Odd Villain says Sterling Equities bought the development across the street from the stadium. Metropolitan Park is all Steve Cohen. Yes, 100%. Didn't want to make it sound like I misrepresented that case before. Armand saying SNY, the sports network that broadcasts the Mets, is estimated to be worth around $1 billion. So if that is the case,
so we offered double, and they
correct.
Still said no.
And they said no, which is crazy. And it's also $1 billion now. I would imagine that number is right now. So that's the crazy bit. We have M McG saying, sorry guys, Mets pregame is on LFGM. Yeah, we got to go.
All good. We gotta get out of here.
We got to get out of here. Guys, great show this week. Not a lot to complain about. Mets are firing on all cylinders. Let's go get a win. Who cares if it's a bullpen game? Who cares if it's Corbin Burns? Burns has been bad. Score runs. Keep putting up some runs. Let's have a big game from Juan Soto so we can put to bed all the nonsense as far as that's concerned. Ibby, you got anything else to say?
I got nothing else to say, John. Let's go Mets. Let's keep this offense rolling. Let's keep the pitching doing what it's doing, and let's figure things out within the bullpen. I know Armand said the last couple of games, the ERA for the pen is around 7. I think it's going to correct itself in the games moving forward. But all in all, let's go Mets. Let's have another great week, and hopefully when we come back, we can continue speaking so highly about the boys playing over in Queens.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you to the over 200 people who are here with us live, even as it leads into a game for our New York Mets. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. We will see you next time. I'm John. That's Ibby. This is Til Mets Do Us Part.